Absolutely.
Thank you. Oh, they look like something fresh out there.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the June 6, 2024 North Carolina State Board of Education meeting. I'm Eric Davis, and chair of the board, and I call this meeting to order. Delighted to welcome all board members and advisors, staff, on-site visitors, online listeners, and social media followers. Remember, you can follow the North Carolina State Board of Education on social media at @ED_State_Board_NC. And you can also follow our meetings online and see our meeting materials by going to SBE meetings at www.dpi.nc.gov. I remind the audience and those listening that this body meets monthly with its official meeting scheduled for the first Thursday of the month. Discussion of agenda items were held yesterday prior to the official meeting day today. Board members are reminded that it's our duty to avoid conflicts of interest and the appearance of conflicts of interest as we handle the work of this board. Any member becomes aware of an actual or apparent conflict of interest, please bring the matter to the attention of the chair. It will then be your duty to avoid participating in discussion on the matter and from voting on the matter. Today, June 6, marks the 80th anniversary when 180,000 soldiers, sailors, and airmen, many of them Americans too young to vote, parachuted behind the hedgerows or stormed the beaches of Normandy. Yesterday, we received a report on how our students will learn about the Holocaust. And it's fitting and proper that our students learn about that period in our history. For in doing so, we not only obey state law, but we honor every American on any field of conflict, whether home or abroad, has stood tall in defense of and for the expansion of freedom. The reality is, many of our students today have little to no personal connection to the America of the 1930s and 40s, and they will know little of that part of our history unless we share it with them. Yes, they'll learn about D-Day through movies like Band of Brothers and Saving Private Ryan, but many of them may be surprised to learn that there was a strong element and feeling in our country at that time to not get into a conflict with Nazi Germany. And some may even be surprised to learn that, at least in part, the Nuremberg laws of 1933 Nazi Germany were based, at least in part, on laws of America at the same time. So it's important that we share all of our history with all of our students. For while it's difficult to face some parts of our history, it's even more difficult to deny it, and to deny ourselves and to our students the opportunity to learn and grow, especially from the most challenging parts of our history. So I'm grateful that we have this opportunity to remember the difficult parts of the Holocaust and the rest of our history. I'm grateful to our teachers who stand tall in sharing that. And even more, I'm grateful to parents and leaders in our state who are willing to join us in facing those difficult truths, learning from them, and growing into a better society. Because, you know, that's part of what we reflect on when we pledge allegiance to our flag. So at this time, I'd like to call on Ms. Jill Kamnitz to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I think we'll have a flag here at the front screen.
United States and to the republic that is one nation indivisible.
Thank you, Ms. Kamnitz. We're gathered here today at the William and Ida Friday Institute for Educational Innovation. And speaking of champions of education and defenders of freedom, William and Ida Friday were certainly two that we all are beneficiary of as their work in promoting public education continues to this day through us. We're grateful for the opportunity to meet here at the Friday Institute. We're grateful for the hospitality and the terrific partnership that we feel with members of the Friday Institute. And at this time, I'm delighted to call on the Executive Director, Ms. Krista
Glazewski.
Thank you, Glazewski, to share some greetings with us. Dr. Glazewski.
Thank you. Well, the story of my life, as I reflect back even to my own kindergarten and first grade years, how to pronounce my name. So you're in good company. I want to thank you all for coming today. And I just want to talk a little bit about the Friday Institute and what we do here for those of you who may not be aware. And then the second part of my talks today are going to focus on inviting one of our teams up who partners with Centennial Campus Middle School. We'll be hearing just a few remarks from them as well. Now, don't worry. They told me, like, you only have 10 minutes. Don't speak too much. But so I'll talk fast. Y'all listen fast. How about that? As Eric mentioned, we are endowed in honor of Bill and Ida Friday, amazing champions for education across the state of North Carolina. Their legacy reverberates to this day, and it will reverberate for generations to come. Next year, we're going to celebrate our 20th anniversary of the Friday Institute, opening its doors. But we predate the opening of these doors because we were an idea and a vision for many years before even opening these doors. And we exist to bring innovation for students all across North Carolina in ways that serve the whole state. And we also work nationally because what we do here reverberates nationally and has national implications. Our core strengths really are the people who work here, the way that we partner and operate across the state, and the way that we provide leadership and resources for all educators in North Carolina. What I like to talk about when I talk about the work that we do here is I say that our business is the business of partnership. And if you've seen one partnership project at the Friday Institute, you've seen one partnership project. We work in any way at the school and the classroom level, all the way at the state level, and everything in between. And one of our guiding resources is Polaris 2.0, really focusing on how we create a learner for a complex future and how we create opportunities for learners to live and engage in the world when we don't even know what that future holds for them. We've worked across all 115 school districts in the last 2 years. And I just want to talk about our team specifically so that you get a sense of the range of the work that we do. We work in areas of digital learning, and we've started this past year, one big emphasis of ours has been on artificial intelligence. We also work, another team of ours led by Holly Lynn Lee is High Rise. Is anyone from High Rise here? No. I'm going to have some of the folks who are here stand up. High Rise focuses on innovations in statistics education. Innovations in STEM education, Gail Jones and her team. New literacies, Marie Himes, who you'll be hearing from in a moment. Marie, if you'll stand. Thanks. Braska Williams leads the MSEM program. This is the Math Science Education Network. And this network has been in effect for about 20 years now. About 40 years now. So the Math Science Education Network for middle school and high school math and science engagement predates the Friday Institute. PLLC, which is our professional learning team, which is Jackie Stevens, if you'll stand. Oh, yeah, and Amy Walter. PEER, which is our program evaluation and education research team. Yep, they're here, Callie Edwards and her team. Tech Infrastructure, Ray Zeitz. and Sammy. So this is our team that focuses on technology and engagement with all across the state for broadband and for Wi-Fi access and cybersecurity. Ambitious learning practices, that's my team. And I partner primarily in STEM education for technology-enriched learning. And then I'll add that at the Friday Institute, what we like to do is, and a core value that we have is a way of working where we can add new teams and new areas of emphasis at any given moment. So last year, we also launched a new team for learning analytics and data science led by Sean Kellogg, who's been a great leader across the state in many areas. And then mathematically connected communities with Aaron Krupa, who's not here. So I do want to highlight some of the work of PBI Global, which is Problem-Based Inquiry Global. This work has taken place in North Carolina and in other countries around the world. It's in Chengdu, China. And right now, at this time, I'll hand it over to Marie Himes and Taylor Fly, who both work jointly with Problem-Based Inquiry to focus on a partnership with Centennial Campus Middle School, our next door neighbor, and to really see, as the focus of their magnet has shifted, to see a new innovation and new focus areas and new areas of practice take shape.
Good morning. I'm Taylor Flythe. I'm one of the assistant principals right next door at Centennial Campus Magnet Middle School. Just what was shared a little while ago, if you could go to the next slide. We have shifted to a new magnet theme this past year. Initially, we were a school for leadership, and this school year was our first year being a center for innovation. Something that we did was partnered with a lot of NC State universities or colleges, as well as a lot of our business partners around and a lot of our partners here at the Friday Institute to come up with what are some characteristics that we believe all students should have in order to function very highly in a society that we really don't know exists yet. So one of the partnerships that we are looking to just build more next year is PBI Global. So earlier this week, we were sitting right in this room with half of our staff going through a lot of professional learning that was led by Marie.
Thanks, Taylor. So as Taylor mentioned, the Centennivator characteristics that the school next door has been working to cultivate with their students and strengthened are really closely aligned to the durable skills in the North Carolina Portrait of a Graduate. And so through the magnet retheming process, Centennial Campus Middle School has been working with the Wake County Magnet Office and reached out to us to help to build instructional capacity with their educators and students around project-based inquiry. And project-based inquiry is the 5-phase inquiry cycle that you see up on your screen on the left. That cycle encourages students to ask compelling questions about the world around them, about locally relevant challenges that they themselves are facing in their communities and that also have connections to the broader global community. So as Ms. Blythe mentioned, earlier this week, we were in this very room with the first cohort of teachers, and they were ideating about some of the challenges that their school community faces. And some of the ideas that they came up with that they're hoping that their students investigate during this upcoming school year are, if you drove into campus, from the entrance to Centennial Campus on this side, you may have noticed that there are no pedestrian or bike paths. That's a real concern for students who live in surrounding neighborhoods and aren't able to safely ride their bikes or walk to school. And so they're interested in this upcoming year in potentially investigating what that will take in this community for those paths to be created and built, and what those paths could look like, and what engineering design principles go into those paths. What kind of policy advocacy do they need to do to make those things come to fruition? So that's just one example of the direction that these projects with students could be headed in the upcoming year. We're really excited to be working with the teachers and the students next door. Obviously, we're super close, so this is a strategic partnership, and we can continue to build our community of practice throughout this summer and in the coming year. Thank you.
So just in conclusion, I just want to add, we don't know what the future holds. We don't know what's going to happen, but we have a firm belief in the power of education to make sure that every learner is prepared for a complex and dynamic future. So that's the brief introduction to the Friday Institute. We are here at your disposal at any time. If you're sitting here wondering, how do I rent this space for my meeting, or how do I partner with the Friday Institute, well, please reach out and get in touch. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Dr. Kozlowski. We appreciate not just the last couple of days, but every day that we partner with the Friday Institute, so thank you. Next, we have some special recognitions. Some of the, I would say, most important members of this board are advisors, our superintendent, principal, and teachers of the year, who bring not only their experiences and expertise and reflect their students' voices, but they bring their passionate commitment to public education to this board. And they often tell us maybe more than we want to hear, but what we need to hear. And we're a better board because of these advisors. And so we'd now like to honor those advisors who unfortunately are rotating off their service on the board, and thank them for their service and wish them the best in the future. And for the first recognition, I'll call on my colleague, Dr. Olivia Oxendine.
Thank you, Chair Davis. It's my honor to make a few remarks. I could probably talk a very long time, but I won't do that today. With respect to Dr. Don Phipps, actually, I met Dr. Phipps a long time ago, because he's from the Cumberland County area, and I would venture to say that might be where you began your career. And Cumberland is in my State Board of Education area, the Sand Hills. And I remember not just Don, but also he has a twin brother, and it's just very, very hard to sometimes to know the difference. But since I've served on the State Board of Education going back several years, I've always sat in front of the superintendent advisor. And I have paid attention to the superintendent advisor, and I've paid attention to things like how calm the person is. And in my mind, I'm thinking, I know that person has a huge agenda and could be doing a million other things during this day. And calmness, but always listening very intently and knowing when or how to ask the right questions. And asking the right questions is why you're here and why we need you. And I so appreciate the service that you've given to the State Board of Education. And arriving early on many mornings, on that Wednesday morning or a Thursday morning, Don and I had an opportunity to chat about restoring old homes. So that's a passion of his. And I learned a few things about foundations and such. So all the best, and do visit us again. Thank you so much. And thank you, Chair Davis.
Dr. Phipps, would you like to make a few comments?
I will say that I'm the son of a Baptist minister who was in the ministry for 50 years or so, and was a retired Air Force person prior to that. And he always took his watch off if he had a lot to say when he got in the pulpit. So the problem was he never looked back at the watch, and we knew we were there for a long time. But I've prepared some remarks. I'd rather really just talk, but there's some things I just wanted to say, and I felt like this was an opportunity to do that. First of all, I want to share that it's been an honor for me to join you all around the table for the past year. I've gotten to know you personally and have a deep appreciation for the work that you do as state board members. Having this experience has reiterated over and over your commitment, dedication, and passion for public education and the children and adults that we serve. From month to month, you hear presentations, receive copious reports and data. You hear personal accounts from across the state, and each of the topics presented is important, even critical to those making the presentation. While I acknowledge the minutiae is critical in the work that you do, I want to share 4 things that I believe should be addressed from the superintendent's perspective. And I want to add that I'm not the only superintendent in the room, and I'm sharing with you my perspective that I feel like have great impacts on the work we do. I know as a body you don't have the authority to mandate these changes that I'm requesting, but I hope that you'll advocate through proper channels, mostly the General Assembly, and highlight the importance of these topics. First, I want to make an open appeal to anyone who hears this to please stop using education as a political pawn. Time and time again, education is used to push a political agenda or further a particular narrative. Too often, the perspective that is shared is not objective and often not completely true. It seems that the value of education is not the traditional value that we should acknowledge, but rather is the political collateral that is created when education is used as a political tool. Now, that was not one of my 4 points, so that one was free, okay? So I asked our local school board members what topics they would suggest that I mention to you all as I speak today. And I can say the feedback that I got from them was included in what I had already written, so I felt like I was covering pretty good ground. Number one is one that seems so simple, yet for years has been a no-go in our state, and this is the school calendar law. The law should be amended to allow an earlier start date, even if limits are imposed, but local boards of education should be allowed to choose the best start dates of school for the systems they represent. In Caldwell County, the late start has several impacts on us that are negative. Number one, we have unbalanced semesters. There's a large discrepancy between instructional time between the fall and the spring as we attempt to end the semester at the Christmas break. Number two, very limited number of days inside the school year for professional development and valuable events like parent-teacher conferences. Number three, the number of required and optional teacher work days fall outside of the academic year and are not as useful as they could be if they were placed inside the instructional begin and end dates. I think it should also be noted that this law is not required of charter schools or private schools that receive state money through the Opportunity Scholarships. Number two is assessment and accountability. It is shameful that we continue to use a single test on a single day as an indicator of quality and success for a school year for students, teachers, administrators, and schools. The school report card uses the results. The teacher bonuses use this data as well. We had some momentum on this topic, and I begged DPI and the state board to keep this topic as a priority. Our students and staff members deserve better. Imagine your job performance, whatever you do in the room, being publicly reported and based on your performance over a 2-hour period on a single day. Again, it's shameful that we do that. Again, I think it's important to note that private schools that receive state funds through Opportunity Scholarships are not required to participate in our assessment or accountability models. In fact, there's no accountability for the funds that the state is directing to these schools. My solution for number 1 and 2 is quite simple. First, require all schools that receive state dollars to follow the same laws that are required of public schools, and that is non-charter public schools. That means the calendar law, the assessment and accountability report, the tenets of the Parents' Bill of Rights, licensure, services offered to meet the needs of all students, and the list goes on and on. Number 3, our educators, and in that term I include teachers and administrators and support staff, including certified and non-certified. And this means bus drivers and teacher assistants, cafeteria workers, custodians, maintenance, all of these professionals. Every one of those groups are educators and should be held in high regard and respected for their work. Not just an appreciation day throughout the year. I mean truly respected and highly regarded, as the board chair said recently, tenaciously revered. We need to look at pay to start, from beginning pay to long-serving veteran pay. And if you really want to show educators that you revere them, return health benefits after retirement and restore master pay. If we truly revere education, it'll be reflected in the actions. And number 4, continue to advocate for steps to address the inequities that exist in our state with respect to funding. Fully funding Leandro will address many of these needs and inequities. And I believe unless you're in a rural or a poor PSU, the intense burden placed on local funding may not be evident. While supplemental funding is a genuine help, there is much more that needs to be done. Every child deserves a quality education regardless of where they live. I want to close by stating that I'm proud to be associated with the public schools of North Carolina and the Caldwell County schools specifically. I see great things happening every day, and I'm amazed at what's accomplished across our state. As I wrap up my duty as your superintendent advisor, I do so with strong assurance that the North Carolina State Board of Education, you as a body, are in place and with great resolve and commitment to make our public schools the best they can possibly be. Thank you for that support, and thank you for allowing me to sit with you for a year.
Dr. Phipps, we can't thank you enough, not only for those remarks, but for your service, your family's service. There's a lot of fortunate North Carolinians out there in Caldwell County and across our state that have benefited from you and your family, and we appreciate you. Next, recognition, I'll turn to Vice Chair Duncan.
Thank you, Chair Davis, and I'm going to face the audience as I make this introduction. I have the privilege of introducing Leah Carper from Guilford County Schools, who has been our Teacher of the Year representative for the last 2 years. I knew the moment Leah was selected that the right choice had been made for that particular year. By the time Leah reached the podium, she had already spread enough joy and enthusiasm to last a year. It was quite memorable, but that joy and enthusiasm has been unending. She has done such a wonderful job as Teacher of the Year, and she brings such enthusiasm to her work. She brings such caring to her work, and you can see it in terms of everything she does. She also brings a tremendous amount of wisdom and experience that she is willing to share in a fearless way, truly in a fearless way. She's a great advisor because she tells people what they need to hear in a way that you know it comes from a caring heart. So how can you ever be unhappy about that when it's coming from a caring heart? Leah has so many unique traits that add up to just a perfect member of this board as an advisor and such a perfect educator, such a wonderful person in the community. And I'm so glad that her family is here, and I know she will recognize them, but we're very grateful to have them here and grateful for their support during the course of the last year. Leah.
I actually asked for pyrotechnics, and so thank you, Ruben, for taking care of that. I was told there wasn't a budget for it, but we can make things work in public education, even with a small budget sometimes. So I'm really proud for that. Thank you so much, Ruben. Yesterday, as I was introducing or reintroducing somebody who was about to speak to the state board to our chair, he looked at my friend Paul and he said, "Tell us what we need to hear, not what you think we want to hear." And so I went back and rewrote all of my speech to tell you what you need to hear instead of what I thought you might want to hear. To the State Board of Education, the first thing that you need to hear is thank you. You need to hear that 2 years ago, I was a high school English teacher in a North Carolina public high school, go Nighthawks, and I was a teacher just like the 90,000 other teachers in North Carolina. I was honored to be named an advisor to the State Board of Education, but I really didn't grasp what this opportunity would mean to me. I've met teachers of the year from around the country who would love to have this opportunity. You turn being a teacher of the year or a principal of the year into a position, not just a title. You give us a voice. But not only that, you give us a microphone and you turn it on and you give us time and you acknowledge us when we raise our hand. And you've given me more than I think I've ever given you. I know to be an advisor means like I'm supposed to give you something, but like genuinely, you gave me more. Specifically, these are the things I'm going to take with me. Vice Chair Duncan, your sincerity and your thoroughness, your very thoroughness. Mr. Blackwell, your generosity. Mr. Keenan, your passion. Dr. Oxendine, your inquisitiveness. Ms. Kamnitz, your kindness. Dr. Tipton Rogers, your perseverance. Ms. Moore, your boldness, your strength. Mr. Hall, it's your heart, bestie, our Sunday morning pick. Mr. Ford, his courage. Mrs. White's grace. Mr. Coltrane's inclusivity. Mr. Frafaria's vision. Treasurer Faldwell, his humility. Lieutenant Governor Robinson, that voice. Superintendent Truitt's resilience. And Chair Davis's humanity. He's gonna not want me to tell this story, but I got the microphone. So One time, I was walking into the State Board of Ed meeting and I had had a particularly tough experience. And I was really worried about something because teachers have real lives outside of their jobs. Like we don't live at a school, but in my real life, and I was worried about something. And the chair of the State Board of Education for North Carolina paused and asked me how I was. And he needed to start a meeting. He had a gavel to put on a table and he didn't waste. He didn't care. He stopped and talked to me and cared about me and asked me how I was doing, but also gave me resources and helped me through something that was really important to my family. And how cool is it that the chair of our State Board of Education cares about people, listens to people, and wants to give them the resources that they need to help make their lives better? You definitely advised me more than I ever advised you. To the Department of Public Instruction, here's what you need to hear. 2 years ago, I had no idea what the heck you did in that pink building. No clue, okay? No idea. I knew that we always called you Raleigh. Oh, Raleigh says you gotta do this thing. Had no idea what you did all day, but now I really do. DPI is full of passionate, knowledgeable professionals who work tirelessly on behalf of our students and our educators. I hope teachers can hear me when I say they want to partner with you, they want to work with you, they want to love you, and they will provide support and resources so all of our students and educators can be successful. DPI, you included me in your work. Please don't stop doing that. I will forever be grateful for you. To my family, this is what you need to hear. You need to hear you are the coolest people I've ever met in my life. That might be because I created 3 of you. But you are the coolest people I've ever known. My husband, Philip, our 3 beautiful children. You gave me unconditional love and encouragement and support and made it possible for me to share myself with the state for the past 2 years. And I will forever be grateful for this, for you. And I want you to know that I love public education, but there's nothing on earth I love more than you. That was really good, right? I wrote that. To my fellow advisors, you need to hear that your insight, support, and hard work pushes others to want to do great work. You have made me a better educator, but more than that, you made me a better human. We all have different levels and different lenses that we're coming into this work at, but you guys always made me feel like I was an equal. And that's weird for teachers to feel like an equal when you're sitting in a room with so many people who make such big decisions all the time. You also taught me that vulnerability is strength, which is a huge lesson that I needed. So thank you, Valerie, Michael, Eugenia, Elena, Donna, Dawn, and Kim. But Patrick, you were my rock. Patrick has a lot of jobs in our friendship. This poor man, he had no idea what he was getting into. One of his jobs is that he has to pick out every restaurant that we eat at because he knows that I don't want to do that work. It's just too much mental stress on me. And that's the kind of person that this principal is. He's the kind of person who will take on the work that you don't want to do because he knows that that's what's best for the group. Also, I would just pick the worst restaurants. I promise you that. We all need a bestie like Patrick. He's consistent. He's honest. He'll answer a text no matter where he is or what he's doing. And he's a giver. Thank you, my Patrick. To my own personal advisors, Julie Pittman, my 2022 North Carolina Region Teacher of the Year team, Clint, Abby, Brian, Ashley, Keegan, Ashton, Ryan, and Elizabeth. You need to hear that while being a state teacher of the year was a tremendous honor, meeting you and working with you was the real prize. Your friendship is the gift I'll take with me forever. Okay, so finally to everybody here today, this is what you need to hear. You need to hear that there's over 90,000 teachers in North Carolina who are looking to this board and to this department and to our legislature to be a partner in the great work that is shaping the future of our state. That future is predicated upon this educational system. They're looking to you. And we know that you're here to assist the teachers. You also need to hear that all the pressure of that lays on the teachers' shoulders because they're the ones doing that great work. They are trained professionals who are experts in their fields, and they deserve to be respected, supported, and compensated for the very hard work we do. You guys, statistically, I'm not supposed to be here. I'm really not. Years ago, I was a student in a North Carolina public school classroom. I showed up to school with an empty belly most days, filthy clothes, no pencils, never a pencil. I showed up to school carrying grief sometimes and sadness and fear. But I did show up to school. And when I showed up to school, there were teachers and administrators and even classified staff who showed me love and they showed me kindness and they showed me grace and they saw my potential. They saw more than a filthy little girl who has a broken home. They saw a girl who could do great things and they helped me do great things. Statistically, I wasn't supposed to be here, but I'm really glad that I was, you know? I'm grateful. And a lot of that has to do with our public school educators. These are experts. They did their job. And is it any wonder why I wanted to be one of them? You need to hear that my story is not unique. It's a story of many of our students sitting in North Carolina public classrooms, full of potential, full of promise, coming from various different backgrounds, who need excellent educators to reach out to them and help them actualize their potential. You never know what that potential could possibly create. They could be sitting in this room advising you one day too, you lucky ducks. Finally, you need to hear this last thing. We are entering a time of great uncertainty and great change. But there are a few certainties. The biggest thing that's for certain is that in August of 2024, 1.3 million public school students will grace us and will grace the desks of classrooms all across North Carolina. They need us to show up. They need us to take action for them because we know at the end of the day, it's our actions that matter, not our words. It's what we do for them that's going to change their lives. Those 1.3 million students like me, are depending on us, the Department of Public Instruction, and our legislature to do things that will help them. You need to remember and you need to hear that that's who you work for. You work for our students, every single one of our students, no matter where they come from, no matter what they believe, no matter what they look like, that's who we work for. And if we hear that important thing that you need to hear, that you work for students, if we hear that over and over, and if we remember that in everything that we do, that we're doing this work for those students, we're going to do some pretty good work. Thank you all from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for this opportunity to be here. Thank you for accepting me. Thank you for giggling with me and doing ridiculous things with me because we work for kids. We don't have to, it doesn't have to be so stuffy all the time, best friends. I'm grateful. I'm grateful that you embraced my energy. And I hope that as you continue this great work, that you remember that ultimately this great work is not for you at all. It's for our kids. Thank you so much. Can we take one last selfie, everybody together? Here we go. I'm serious, okay? Selfie, 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Carper. You have made us all better in so many ways. And for our last advisor recognition, I'll turn to Ms. Jill Kamnitz.
Thank you, Chair Davis. Really, I could just take Leah's description of Patrick Green and stop right there. So thank you, Leah. That was perfect. And there's a theme going on here today because what I had planned to say is that I've known Patrick Green for a really long time. And when I found out that he was going to be our principal of the year, I thought, this is going to be a great advisor who's going to tell us what we need to hear. So the theme of the day, and that's what you have done, Patrick. We've learned so much from you, particularly about the realities of being a principal of a small rural high school, which we know is quite a different task than some of the other advisors, and it's important to hear all those voices, so thank you for that, particularly as a representative of the Northeast, because that is often what every district in the Northeast looks like, so thank you for that. Your openness to change and innovation and thinking outside of the box has been inspirational, and that's what makes you such a good leader in your school. And I have to say that whatever the topic that we were discussing, your always thoughtful comments reminded us to always put students first. And that is our value, and you reflected that and helped us reflect it. So thank you so much for sitting with us for 2 years. We'll miss you so much. To you.
I would like to say that, I'll remind you that the first time I came and spoke to you, I asked specifically that I not have to follow Leah Carper, and you all had let me down. Can't do this. Nothing replaces the value of experiences. While we can learn from ideas and words, there's no true substitute for getting your hands dirty and living something firsthand. Over the past 2 years, I've had the opportunity to work alongside this board and many great minds at the Department of Public Instruction, and I have learned more about education policy and programs than the years of my previous service combined. I have met some truly innovative thinkers and people that dream big about what education can and should be for our students and for the people that serve them. What you've given me in these opportunities cannot be quantified, and I'm forever changed by your generosity and willingness to listen to those voices in the field. So I've thought for a little while now about what to say today. What words can I offer to people that have given me such a rich experience? What have I learned and what did I see? I settled on the idea that someone has already probably said it best, and when you're at a loss for words, you should probably steal from them and go out strong. Some of you know that before I was a principal, I was a history teacher. In my classroom, one of the first things we read and really tried to comprehend was George Washington's farewell speech to the people of the United States. In this letter, our country's first leader explains why he will not seek a third term in office and gives advice to a young country based on what he has learned. It's a warning to a nation about what could lie ahead if we are not careful. And like the old adage states, those who do not learn from history are destined to repeat it. Maybe just the 11th grade. Two important takeaways from our nation's first leader were the importance of unity and the fear of political divisiveness and how that could be our downfall. Today, we face the same challenges mentioned in that letter, but we also have strong leaders, like those of you at this table, who can safeguard us from all of these pitfalls. And as this board and the department looks to change, my parting wish is that we learn from Washington's words and focus on unity. Our students do not know our meanings of red and blue. They only know opportunity and disadvantage. I hope that the spirit of the board continues to find ways to provide those opportunities and eliminate those disadvantages. There is no more important work than this. Before I exit, I want to say thank you. Thank you for your leadership, your acceptance, your support, and your guidance over the past 2 years. Thank you to all the department people that I have bugged with emails and phone calls, leveraging my personal connections with you all. Sorry, Tom Tomberlin. Thank you to my partners at the table and the advisors. Leah Carper and Kim Jones continue to impress me with what teacher leadership looked like. Their thoughts challenge me, and they live to serve students and the colleagues. You're all better for having your voices. I remember vividly as Leah and I prepared for our first state board meeting, which was virtual over the summer, and we called each other and both kind of went on for a minute about, the inferiority complex that we were both facing, how terrified we were. We didn't ask for any of this. And 2 years later, we're both very different people. Leah has been a true inspiration in her energy. I would love for my children to be in her classroom. Absolutely love that. I know that they would learn a whole lot more than grammar and reading comprehension. And that's what's really important, that they learn to be good people. And I know that the people you touch are good people. I was told that I have to tell the story of the picture right here. Principals are problem solvers. And so every day as Leah and I would walk in to the Department of Public Instruction, you notice the student art. And there was a noticeable empty space on a wall. And you can only walk by that so much as a principal because something needs to go there. And we got to fix this. These are little things that it stands out, and we got to fix this. And so Leah and I decided for an April Fool's prank that we would have a caricature done of she and I, along with Eugenia Floyd and Elena Ashburn, the two previous advisors. had it matted and framed to match the student art and PPI exactly, and solved the problem. Put it on the wall, and we figured it'd be there a week. Somebody would notice it, and what is this? Call me out, and I was like, I can't fire me. I don't work there. It stayed for months. They took it down when they decided to renovate. It got packed up with the other student art, and I had to task grouping with finding that for us. But it's truly a testament to the camaraderie that this group feels amongst ourselves and with each other, and how much we feel like we belong in that building and with you all. So it's truly a symbol of what it means to all of us. To my POI partner, Donna Bledsoe, I love the other people in her cohort, but I need to tell you that the moment I walked in her school and met her, I knew that she was the next POI. There was no doubt. I called it at the state board meeting, first sentence into the superintendent's introduction. It's her. I know it's her. And it's true. And I have tried to spend the last year doing my very, very best to support her and her words and her vision and the great things she has done for elementary education that I genuinely know nothing about, having been a high school principal my entire time. She is incredibly intelligent. She's a powerful leader, and I have loved sitting beside her and learning from her all these past few months. So thank you so much for everything you've given me. You are truly a lighthouse, and I know that's what you guide to be. Lastly, I want to say thank you to my family. My oldest daughter, Riley, is here with me today. She said she finally needed to come see these people I keep talking about at dinner. Thank you to my family that picked up the slack in my absence from being home traveling around these last 2 years, and to my school family as well. Because when I'm not in the building, that means somebody else has to do the leadership work. And that's been really good to see people that step up and do that. So the greatest mark of a principal is that it doesn't fall apart when you walk out of the building. And so they made me very proud that they were able to continue that leadership. Thank you so much. Once again, I'm forever changed by this experience, and I will miss you all. But I promise you, that if I will be back, because I'm going to go back and work just as hard so that in the second day of board meetings, you have to recognize me in my school for something. Well, we're going to do that. See you all soon.
Dr. Green, you are one terrific leader, and that group of high school students are incredibly fortunate to have you, as are their parents. So thank you for your service. In a few minutes, we'll make some photos, and you can bring your family members up, but got a couple more recognitions before we get to photos. And at this time, I'll call on Dr. Lori Carlin for the next round of recognitions. Dr. Carlin.
Really loves pyrotechnics. Thank you, and good morning, Chair Davis, Vice Chair Duncan, members and advisors to the board. It is my pleasure to once again be before you to honor our United States Senate Youth Delegates and scholarship recipients. The United States Senate Youth Delegates and scholarship recipients go through a rigorous process. It is a merit-based and highly competitive process. Annually, North Carolina selects and awards 2 high school students to serve as delegates to the United States Senate Youth Program. The 2 recipients also receive a $10,000 undergraduate college scholarship with encouragement to continue their studies in government, history, and public affairs. Michelle McLaughlin oversees this program, and I can attest that our peers across the country envy her leadership and emulate our process. So our first award recipient is William David Drake, more affectionately known as Liam. He is currently a junior at Woods Charter School in Chapel Hill. He serves as student council treasurer and at-large 11th grade representative and leads the Model UN. He has won honors from the school to the national level for achievement in music, social studies, public service, French, and science. An avid pianist, he performs on a full leadership scholarship with the North Carolina Chamber Music Institute, was a semifinalist at the 2023 Fish-Off National Chamber Music Competition, and has appeared on numerous prestigious local recital series as a soloist and chamber musician. He also officiates competitive youth soccer with the North Carolina Soccer Referees Association and is an ordained PCUSA elder. Serving as one of North Carolina's 2 delegates to the 62nd U.S. Senate Youth Program was the honor of his life, and he will eternally be grateful for the truly life-changing opportunity Washington Week afforded him to pick the brains of America's most influential elected and appointed public servants alongside the brightest and most inspiring high schoolers in the country. Chairman Davis and members of the North Carolina Board of Education, State Superintendent Catherine Truitt, and the K-12 Social Studies section of DPI presents Mr. Liam David Drake, North Carolina winner of the 2024 United States Senate Youth Scholarship. Annie Eilers is a graduating senior and the salutatorian from Providence High School in Charlotte, North Carolina. She has a passion for educational policy, which she has had the privilege of exploring through her work as president of the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Youth Council and an intern with the 501c3 Our Turn. At school, Annie is the captain of her school's speech and debate team, president of the Spanish Club, and an active member of the National Honor Society and Student Council. Next year, she will be attending Duke University as a Benjamin and Duke Scholarship to pursue a double major in public policy and economics. She is massively grateful for her experience in Washington this past March and how it redefined her perspective on public service and our national government. Chairman Davis and members of the North Carolina State Board of Education, State Superintendent Catherine Truitt, and the K-12 Social Studies section of DPI present Ms. Ann Karen Eilers, North Carolina winner of the 2024 United States Senate Youth Scholarship. Ann? Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Carlin. And then for our final recognition, I'll turn to Dr. Chrissy Brown.
Good morning. So I'm Chrissy Brown. I'm with the Office of Advanced Learning and Gifted Ed, SNAOS team. And I'm the co-lead for the U.S. Presidential Scholars Program. I'd also like to extend a special thank you to Angela LeMay in the Office of Career and Technical Education for co-leading the work on the U.S. Presidential Scholars Program as well. On May 9th, the U.S. Department of Education announced 161 students from across the country as 2024 U.S. Presidential Scholars, 2 of whom are from North Carolina, 1 from a private school and 1 from a public school. We are fortunate to have our Guilford County student here with us today. These scholars are selected annually by the White House Commission on Presidential Scholars based on their academic success, artistic and technical excellence, essays, school evaluations, and transcripts, as well as evidence of community service, leadership, and demonstrated commitment to high ideals. The U.S. Department of Education and President Biden will recognize the Presidential Scholars Class of 2024 this summer for their outstanding achievements. North Carolina is proud to call this student our own. Her many achievements are a testament to her hard work and determination. These successes also represent the responsibility, dedication, and love poured into her by her parents, family members, and many teachers and educators over the years. I'd also like to point out that her mother is a teacher at Guilford County Schools. It is my privilege to introduce to you Dashita Agarwal from Greensboro, who graduated last Wednesday from one of our cooperative and innovative high schools, the Early College at Guilford, and tell you a little about this remarkable young person. In high school, Dashita served as founder and president of Model United Nations, vice president of Interact Club, captain of 2 science Olympiad teams, and earned international placement in HOSA, Future Health Professionals. She completed 447 hours of community service and graduated high school with a 4.8 grade point average. As a youth health advisor for North Carolina's Department of Health and Human Services, Deshita launched a statewide educational equity effort by assessing the school health support systems of more than 100 disabled students. She is also the national advisor for the Children and Youth with Special Health Care Needs National Research Network. Last summer, Deshita interned at Duke University School of Medicine, where she worked with Duke Children's and Boston Children's Hospitals to create cultural humility guidelines for clinical care. She is now headed to Duke University to study global health, computer science, and biology. She is also a recipient of the National Merit Scholarship. Please join me in congratulating Deshita on this prestigious recognition. And I just want to point out the award that she got, and this really is a gold medal. It is super heavy. Thank you.
All right. And if you could remain there, let's all go forward and we'll make a series of photos, beginning with Deshita. Okay. Colleagues could join me. I'm so proud. Is your family?
It's just.
Oh, yes.
Yes. Oh, I can see it's here. Back profile, just kind of that. The streets are across all the way back, base back here, so you don't. Yeah. One, baby, baby, one, two, three. Yeah. Okay, so the principal guys, okay? One more time.
And that'll be part of your scholarships. With your family reference.
And one, two, one more.
I wish you could put that. Thanks. That's right, like.
Thank you, Sally. Go over, Riley, look me. Yep. Oh, you're good. Yep. Yep. One, two, and three, one more. One, two. Thank you, family.
Just there you go. I'm sure that's what I think people over this way. Yep, perfect. And 1, 2, and 1 more. 1, 2, 3. Oh, yeah. One, two, one more, 1, 2, 3. Out. Yes, I.
And for our final recognition of the day, I'll turn to Dr. Amy Ryan. Dr. Ryan.
So exciting times this morning. I get to continue the fun. In her 2013 TED Talk, Angela Duckworth, a researcher, psychologist, and educator, outlined the concept of grit as the combination of perseverance and passion necessary for individuals to achieve long-term goals, which strongly correlates with success. Duckworth emphasized that grit isn't merely about receiving bursts of inspiration of courage, but it entails cultivating daily habits to adhere to a schedule and consistently surmount challenges and distractions. As North Carolina educators embarked on the letters journey amidst the post-COVID transition, they found themselves facing a significant challenge. Despite their diligent efforts, reading data had hit an all-time low. While previous attempts have been made to address early literacy, it was under the leadership of Superintendent Catherine Truitt and the 2021 Excellent Public Schools Act that significant strides were made. North Carolina took the lead nationally, being the first state to name letters in legislation for all pre-K through 5th grade teachers, demonstrating a commitment to invest in educators beyond the previous K-3 requirements. Unlike many other states where legislative updates haven't been met with adequate funding, North Carolina also fully backed its commitment. Despite the challenging nature of mastering letters, North Carolina educators proved to demonstrate unwavering grit. The official journey commenced in August of 2021 and has since become a story resonating across various platforms nationwide. Our mantra from state to student underscores the imperativeness of translating theory into practice. As of June 2024, all 3 original cohorts, including 115 North Carolina school districts, have completed letters professional development. Before we celebrate our 44,000 educators, please listen to this video, including some astonishing numbers and video and voices that puts it all into perspective.
Congratulations! This month, June 2024, marks an important milestone in early literacy education in North Carolina. I am thrilled to celebrate each of our elementary educators on the tremendous accomplishment of completing letters professional development. Over the past 2 years, 44,000 educators have completed letters PD grounded in the science of reading. I know this wasn't an easy undertaking, but your dedication to professional growth and unwavering commitment to student success is why we are seeing continued growth in reading proficiency and academic achievement in North Carolina students. Because of your hard work and perseverance, you are unlocking the potential of every learner and laying the foundation for their future success.
You are changing lives, saving lives, and breaking cycles for generations by simply ensuring that every child has the same opportunity to become anything and everything their heart desires, simply by starting with the ability to read.
I think in Sampson County, one of the things that we've seen remarkable is that if you looked at our kindergarten literacy rates, last year, our kindergartners started the year at 87% of at risk. So 87% of all of our kindergartners were at risk of not being able to read by the end of that year. What we found is that by the end of the year, that changed to only 23% of our kids were at risk. That's because those students had a full year of in-depth phonics, literacy, teaching and learning that was happening in their classrooms. And so we were able to take what we were learning in letters, take all of that knowledge in professional development, and deliver it to students in a way that actually changed their outcomes.
I have, for example, a student this year who, when he came in, he was very meek, very mild. He would not read anything and told me, I can't read. So he sat down and we started working in our small groups, and we would use our poppets to tap out each of our sounds and blend those sounds together. And he became more confident in small group. So when we went into whole group, I noticed that he was beginning to answer questions and to venture out and take those same risks. And I thought it was awesome when he took his testing at the beginning of the year. In reading, he was well below average. And when he took it a couple of weeks ago, he was on green benchmark. So that is like one success. But when I look at him, I know that what I'm doing is making a difference because it works.
Just the initial feat of having to kind of participate in such a learning curve for teachers was overwhelming, but it was met with much positivity. And now that teachers are seeing the impact that science reading is having on scores, on students, confidence, and building those proficient readers, they are enlightened because they can see that there's been an initiative across the state that supports every teacher in this movement to produce proficient readers.
With this focus, what it's done for us is I think about our teachers and our interventionists. They're collaborating together, looking at, okay, which students need extra help. So you have your small groups going on in the school, in the classroom, which is great. Now, which ones need to be pulled out and maybe have some further instruction and assistance? Loving these opportunities for students because they can get that more tailored help, more intervention for them. I want to see them have that love for reading like we've discussed. It's taken me to where I am today. We want that same thing for other students. We want them to grow. We want them to become the best version of themselves, reach their full potential. I think it's a great thing when you see professionals coming together and having that common language. It's happening not only in the classroom, but also in the small groups and also with their interventionists and also with, teacher assistants that are working with them on the side. And having that all working together fluidly. How cool is that? Like, how powerful is that for our students?
As state superintendent, I'm incredibly proud of your efforts and the work you do every day to support our state's youngest learners. It's because of your dedication that our youngest learners are poised for success throughout their K-12 journey and beyond. We know that when students learn to read, they are better prepared to lead and to succeed.
As a veteran North Carolina educator, I continue to be humbled by every opportunity where I'm entrusted to share our story. The dedication of North Carolina educators has been instrumental in positively impacting countless students and their ability to become successful readers. I anticipate further shifts as deeper levels of learning and implementation unfold beyond the initial professional development phase. I am forever grateful for the support of the North Carolina state leaders and the investment that they've made in our treasured educators. Yet I'm absolutely amazed by the commitment and the dedication of the North Carolina educators who face this opportunity head on as they prioritize doing what was and is best for children, embodying the true essence of grit. Please join me in celebrating the 44,000 heroes across North Carolina who are changing and in some cases saving lives as they work tirelessly to ensure children as they learn to read, lead, and succeed. So I have pom-poms for everybody to celebrate. The 44,000 educators are on their way in for a picture with the state board. Just kidding. So unfortunately, they can't all be here today, but in light of, seriously, in light of all the hard work they have done, this should not go unnoticed. This is something that is not happening in every state. We're the only state that has named letters and have all of our pre-K through 5 teachers starting on that same page initially when they begin their training with letters and the science of reading journey. So thank you. Raise your pom-poms, cheer them on from afar, and we'll continue this great work. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ryan, and thanks to all 44,000 of our educators helping our students read better. Let's now take a break and we'll return at 10:30. 10:30.
But you don't.
All right, we are back in session and we'll move to our committee reports and we'll begin with the Student Learning and Achievement Committee led by Mrs. Jill Kamnitz. Ms. Kamnitz.
Thank you, Chair Davis. Dr. Olivia Oxendine and I share the responsibility for the work of this committee. And this morning, we are going to start off with two new business items, a couple of updates from some folks we haven't heard from for a while. First, I'd like to invite Mr. Mike Ward, who Superintendent of Public Instruction inherited, and John Paul Smith, who is the Executive Director of the North Carolina Education Corps, and they're going to give us an update.
Good morning, members of the board, Chair Davis. It's good to be with you. We appreciate this opportunity to provide an update on the work of the North Carolina Education Corps. As a three-time graduate of NC State University, I also got to tell you, it's good to see you in Wolfpack country. NC State looks good on you. We are pleased to provide this update. We are very mindful of our origins with the State Board of Education, and we're connected to the State Board and to the department in multiple ways. Superintendent Truitt, represented by Alex Granados, serves on our board of directors. Wendell Hall and Ruben Fofaria serve as liaisons for the state board on our board of advisors. Our presentation this morning is going to be brought to you by our executive director, John Paul Smith, and by Dr. Paula Wilkins, who is the chief academic officer for the Winston-Salem Forsyth County Schools. And they are terrific partners with Education Corps, one of 31 PSUs with whom we work. So I'm going to turn it over to them. It's good to be with you.
Thank you, Mike. It's good to be here with the State Board of Education. It's always good to be Cecilia Holden's opener. And to follow Dr. Ryan, it's good to have pom-poms, and I think we got paperweights, so I'm learning the tricks of the trade. I'll have to bring some swag next time. So we are really grateful for the leadership of the State Board and its support for North Carolina Education Corps. We'll do a little bit of a reminder of what we're all about. We'll give you a progress report, and then we'll tell you where we need a little bit of help. I've been told to keep it tight, so I'll blow through the slides. There's a lot of content on them, but happy to answer any questions that you have. All right, so you've heard the phrase that it takes a village. We are working to equip the village beyond educators, specifically as high-impact tutors. Can we go to the next slide? So we know that the focus has been on literacy. There's a lot of good progress that's been made in North Carolina on literacy, but we also know that there is a big mountain to climb. So 2 out of 3 students in the country are not at grade level in reading or math by 4th grade. So this is bad for individual opportunity. We know that the state board's goals are 1, eliminate, close the opportunity gap, 2, improve school and district performance, and then 3, improve educator preparedness. We are helping to do all 3 through high impact tutoring. You can go to the next slide. There have been gains in literacy, as we know that Dr. Ryan has reported on. This is fantastic, and this is so much we're celebrating the 44,000 educators that have been trained in letters. Next slide. But we also know that there is a big mountain to climb in early literacy, and that part of the solution, we can go to the next slide, is high impact tutoring. So I think in the last video, there's a principal who said 72% of kindergartners, or a large number of kindergartners, are starting below where they should be right away. So for students who are starting behind coming into school, what they need is not only strong core instruction, but they also need some additional intervention, supplemental support. And so that's what the high impact tutors are helping to provide. The struggle that districts have is they have a challenge finding tutors, training those tutors, monitoring what type of impact they're having on students, and then 4, finding ways to support the cost of high impact tutoring. We are focused on high impact tutors who are working with students 3 times a week, 30 minutes a session, consistently throughout the school year, in alignment with MTSS, the MTSS framework, and all of the tutors are also in alignment. They get training with the science of reading. So we're very much in sync with everything else that's going on within North Carolina. Progress to date. So since 21-22, when we really focused on early literacy tutoring, we have supported over 1,200 core members. These are the high impact tutors who have been working with over 22,000 K through fifth graders across 250 elementary schools. The vast majority of the elementary schools this past year, 94% were Title I schools, and across 30 counties. So North Carolina Education Corps tutors are working in schools with the largest needs, with the students within those schools with the largest needs to help provide additional support. Here's a map of where we've been partnering across the state. We've been very intentional in working with districts in each of the 8 education regions across North Carolina, as we've wanted to learn how best can we support districts in urban, rural, and suburban settings, because they're all different. Next slide. Our work is informed by national best practices, state leaders. We've got a formal program evaluation going on with NC State's Friday Institute. It's good to be here today, as well as Duke Social Science Research Institute, and then also experience and practice. We are a continuous learning organization. It's very important to us because it's important to the impact that teachers are having on kids. We track progress across 3 main metrics. One of them is effectiveness. So how effective are we in our implementation support of districts, and how effective are tutors in terms of the types of student growth, academic gains that they're helping to influence with students. Accessibility is really important to us too. High impact tutoring is not inexpensive, but it's really important for us that tutors are accessible to all students in the state, especially the students that need it most. So we're very focused on making sure that the cost per student served is low. It's about $1,200 for a full year of high impact tutoring for a student. And that is kind of nationally speaking, we've been as cost effective as anybody else across the country. Accessibility is really important to us. And then it's also important that our partners like Dr. Paula Wilkins really appreciate the work that we're doing, that we are working hand in hand with one another, that we are creating relief, not additional grief to schools, and that we're relieving the onerous burdens that the teachers have by providing additional support for them. So how are we doing? There's some quotes here. I think we can probably skip through these slides. We want to keep it tight. But there's a lot of appreciation across the state from our school partners. You see Dr. Faust right here. We appreciate the state support for our partnership with NC Education Corps, and the need to fund high-impact tutoring on a recurring basis is something that we really want to emphasize with the state board. We're emphasizing with the legislature right now. Are we having an impact? Yes, we are having an impact. We're having an impact in three different areas. One is on student outcomes. The second one is on employment and engagement. So our tutors are coming from the local communities, of our partner districts. They are retired teachers, they are parents and caregivers, they are college students who are interested in becoming educators, and they're providing additional support while making money as part-time employees of the local school districts. And then the last thing related to that is this is an opportunity to get community members involved in schools, in public schools. And that's been really important too. So in terms of, I know what you're particularly interested in is what's the impact that tutors are having on student academic gains. So we are on a journey of building a base of evidence for what that looks like through NC Education Corps. And our starting point was really to look at, what students are we serving and what type of gains are they seeing. What you can learn from this slide is that our tutors are supporting students in purple who are starting way below the general North Carolina student, and they're actually making their growth gains are actually outpacing the gains of the general student in North Carolina. So that was the first piece of the first step in our evaluation, is determining what students are we working with, what types of gains are they beginning to see. But this isn't comparison data, so we wanted to take another step in evaluating what kind of impact are tutors having on kids. So next slide. Dr. Wilkins is going to share a little bit about what they're seeing in Winston-Salem for sight, what the value of NC Education Corps is in our partnership, and why our partnership is important to them.
Thank you so much. So good morning, everybody. I come to you by way of being a teacher first and a turnaround leader. And so in thinking about partnering with any organization or group, everybody wants to help, but one word is so very important, and that's intentionality. We must have a way in order to serve our students to see growth and impact. So we talk about what the state of North Carolina has done with letters and its implementation for K-5. It's always all been about intentionality. And so we want to continue that partnership alignment, building on what we know about the science of reading and having an opportunity to have a skilled, trained tutor supporting our students. And so what you see in our numbers with our partnership with NC Ed Core is looking at the number of schools. We've had 10 schools in the partnership and having over 400 students served. That may seem like a small number, and this is only one piece in a bigger, larger puzzle for our district, but we need more. As you see our data in North Carolina and our need to close foundational skills gaps for our students to ensure proficient readers, we need more help and we need more funding to help. So as we think about the sustainability post sunsetting of ESSER, to be able to continue to fund this work takes funding and support and intentionality. And so you will see the focus of the top skills that our tutors focus using our DIBELS data in service to figure out where we provide support. Next slide, please. So our foundational skills focus has been the use of Super Kids, which is a foundational literacy program, which in conjunction with learning the science of reading and being trained with reading research to classroom practice and other support tools by our NC Ed Core partners, we're using these in conjunction with our data to help show impact for our students. Next slide. And so this is hot off the press. This is our end of year data through DIBELS. And so what you will notice, our number of students that move from below to above benchmark and at benchmark from beginning of year to end of year, we've seen great progress through our students served through NC Ed Core. We plan to look even further at comparison groups as we look at the total picture to begin to isolate what is it that we are doing with the work of our Ed Core tutors that are moving the needle to help impact our students. And so we need more opportunities, we need more funding and support to help make this happen. We're committed to engaging in partnerships like NC Ed Core that have an intentional focus aligned to the science of reading. So I thank you so much for the opportunity, and I'll turn it back over.
Thank you, Dr. Evans. So the next step in our evaluation journey is to really try to isolate what kind of impact our tutors having on the skills that they're tutoring students on. So the challenge with just looking at end of grade scores or end of year scores without looking at this data is it's really hard to tease apart what kind of impact are the core teachers providing to the students, and how are they affecting student gains, and how is it that the tutors are providing student gains. So the next step in our evaluation is really to try to isolate the skills gains that students are making on the foundational skills that the tutors are actually helping those students on. So next steps, strengthen data collection and accountability measures, deepen and diversify funding. So in addition to the public funding that we receive right now, we've got a $3 million state appropriation for this coming year. It's a non-recurring appropriation from the state of North Carolina, trying to convert that, need your help to convert that into a recurring appropriation. We're also out raising money from private donors. So we've benefited from the generosity of foundations like the Goodnight Educational Foundation and the C.D. Spangler Foundation, and we'll continue to look to raise private funds to help support this as well. And then we want to be able to grow high-impact tutoring in more schools. We've used the ESSER funds basically to run a big pilot, and there's a lot of promise there, but we'd like to be able to have high-impact tutors working in more schools with more students so that every child in North Carolina does have the type of support that they need to succeed. So as you all know, it's a difficult operating environment that we're operating in right now. There are three big things happening for our districts and that are affecting our partnerships. One is we've got the ESSER sunset. So ESSER funds will be expiring at the end of December. There's the education finance opportunity scholarships that are providing more uncertainty for districts as they make budgeting decisions. And then this is also election season, as everybody knows. So we're moving from an environment where there's a lot of COVID relief funds into this new environment where there's more uncertainty. And so some of the challenges that we know we'll have is PSU district ability to pay, which we'll be paying attention to, and then ongoing funding from the state of North Carolina. We need your help in communicating that high-impact tutoring is not just a nice to have, it's really a need to have. If we truly do want all students to have the support that they need, starting early on, to succeed. And then the last thing is that we need to continue to communicate that it's going to take a while to see gains. You know, students are starting pretty far behind, and the gains that they're making take a little while to show up on the academic assessment. So we need to be patient, and we also need to understand that if we're pulling back on services, it's going to be harder for them to make gains. So the longer we wait to provide additional support, the farther behind they may get. What kind of questions do you have?
Question. First one is, thank you. The first one is, do you have data that similar to what you just showed us from Winston-Salem, Forsyth, or other of the districts in which you're working?
Yeah, so our program evaluation, we've got data sharing agreements for each of the districts that we are working with. And so the program evaluation team will be assessing as many of those districts as possible. And so the preliminary analysis that we did, so we had a reporting requirement from the last state budget last fall, asking that we report out on gains that our school districts are seeing by February 15th of this last year. So from the 22-23 school year. And so we were a bit rushed in terms of actually gathering that data and giving NC State and Duke enough time to crunch it. So the preliminary analysis that was done of a subset of districts. I think it was 8 districts out of the 32. But moving forward, we'll be looking to assess more districts. And there are 2 pieces of data that we gather, and we have through our data sharing agreements with each district. One is input data. So it's information on how many students are there in these programs, how many times are they working with tutors, what skills are they working on, and then there's the outcome data that we take from MClass. The end of the year score, the middle of the year and the end of the year scores, those are matched together, and our evaluators look at both together.
Yeah, I think we continue to be interested in seeing the data, both specific and broader.
Sure.
Second, Guilford had a pretty strong high impact program going, yes. And there's concern about, as you have said, the funding as we go forward. One of the things that's being thought of there is to go and ask the municipalities within the county as to whether or not they would designate some level of funding for high-impact tutoring, given the success it's had for the students who are citizens of those communities. Is that happening anywhere else where those kinds of requests are being made?
I have not seen that specific request in other places, but I'm going to note that and take it to folks. What we have seen is that folks are looking to see how they can grade a combination of federal, state categorical, and private funds from local communities, from local foundations to support this work. Is it the county commission that is looking at it, or?
No, the city's being asked.
The city.
County commission's being asked to fund it, yes.
Yeah.
That's their normal, but actually making further requests to the municipalities who don't have any obligation to fund education.
Yeah.
That request is being made.
One quick question over here. To what extent, if you could talk a little bit about who the people are that you're engaging as the tutors, and then talk maybe a little bit about all the places where you're not. Is it just a cost barrier, or is it also finding the tutors?
Yeah, so in terms of the tutors themselves, the majority are actually retired educators. And they've been in the classrooms. This is an opportunity for them to continue to support kids. And so the vast majority of the tutors are retired educators. There are other retirees. There are parents and caregivers who may have students in the elementary schools. For most districts, they're part-time employees. And so it fits in with parent schedules really well. It's a way to engage parents in the school in very targeted ways. And then there are some college students, community college students who are involved as well. Now, one thing that we're seeing increasingly, which I think there's a lot of potential around this, is districts saying, hey, we've got instructional assistants, teacher assistants who can allocate a portion of their time to high impact tutoring. They do not receive the same type of training, coaching, and monitoring. Same thing with existing Title I tutors. They do not receive the type of support that you're providing to all of the EdCore members. They're existing school personnel by and large. We don't have to pay them more, but if you could train them, they can enhance their ability to provide instructional support to students as part of their overall job. So we're seeing that too. Now, what was the second part of your?
Whether or not there may be a barrier in some of our more rural districts in particular for actually finding the folks to do this work.
Surprisingly, we've been very successful in engaging in-person tutors in urban and rural North Carolina. But there are more difficulties for rural districts in shifting to using title funds to pay for tutors, because they are more apt to need to use those for basic school personnel. So that is a challenge that they're facing.
Thank you, Madam Chair. John Paul, EdCore has focused more on the reading skills.
Yes.
Thus far. At what point do you visualize us moving towards, in a robust way, math skills?
Thanks for asking. So we just started a math pilot this past year. So we're doing a math pilot in 4 partner districts, Ashe County Schools, Chatham, Orange County Schools, and New Hanover. So Dr. Faust in New Hanover, he's focused on 4th graders, high impact tutoring for 4th graders. So we're piloting out math right now and looking for ways to expand that moving forward as well.
One more question. We'll keep this as brief as possible.
The question I have has to do with resources. When tutors are working with students, are they using the classroom, if they need resources like textbooks or whatever the material might be?
Yeah, so they're essentially providing tier 2, in alignment with the MTSS framework, they're providing tier 2 supplemental instruction. And so they're using the supplemental instructional materials that otherwise teachers might be using in that same school. Now, one thing that we're looking at for this coming year is in the early going, we deferred to the schools because that was their preference to use materials that they already had. Now, what we know is there's a lot of variance in terms of what the level and quality of materials that schools have across the state. So one thing that we're doing this coming year is if schools don't have strong supplemental instructional support materials for tutors, we're providing a default option. So they'll be using the M-class intervention curriculum as they work with students. Yeah.
Thank you, all 3 of you, for giving us this update. It's been a while since we've heard from you.
Yeah.
And as always, though, you're doing really good work out there, and we appreciate the benefits of this for our students.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
We'll now welcome Ms. Cecilia Holden, who is the president and CEO of MyFutureNC, for another update.
All right, I'm gonna test the clicker. Yes, it works. Great. So for those of you that don't know me, I'm Cecilia Holden. I have the fortune of leading MyFutureNC. We're a 501c3 nonprofit. I'm gonna spend the next few minutes telling you a little bit about what started MyFutureNC for those who are not familiar with this, but I'll spend the bulk of the time talking about how the K-12 space fits into MyFutureNC and the state's educational attainment goal and beyond 2030, where the goal is set. So as we all hear in the news, North Carolina has been on fire for economic development. It continued even in the middle of the pandemic, but the words you'll hear out of my mouth is education is economic development. Absolutely, the two are one and the same. But at the same time, we've got a labor market shortage. And when I say that, either there's misalignment with the labor market, we don't have the individuals skilled to meet the job demands, but overall, we continue to create new jobs in North Carolina. We've got to make sure that we're positioned to be able to fill those jobs. Good news is we've got one of the most robust educational infrastructures in the entire nation. Wonderful K-12, statewide system. We've got 58 community colleges, 16 public universities, 36 privates, 20 workforce development boards. We have the infrastructure to meet the workforce demands. Not unlike the rest of the nation, we continue to struggle. Now, what we're going to talk about is the 2 million by 2030 goal. You see two words up there that we've added, and beyond. So back in 2016, we had two thought leaders in North Carolina, MC Belk Pylon, you see the John M. Belk Freeway in the Charlotte area, and then also Margaret Spellings, former UNC system president, former U.S. Secretary of Education. These two thought leaders said, we've got a talent crisis and we've got to work to solve it. So they brought together a commission, and that commission looked at data and research, went around the state, and at the end of 2 years, they said the first thing we have to do is we have to have a goal. Now, how many people do we need with a degree or credential? And so based on the data, it was determined that we would need 2 million individuals with an industry-valued credential, non-degree credential, or a college degree by the year 2030. So that was the goal. So what you're going to hear about today, if you do the math, you'll quickly see students graduating from high school from here on out aren't going to be 25 to 44 by the year 2030. But we're focused on the and beyond just as much. We want to make sure we've got a feeder for the pipeline because we're going to continue to see economic growth in North Carolina, and we want opportunity for every single person. So MyFutureNC was stood up based on this goal. The goal was actually codified into state law in 2019. It was one of the very few things that the General Assembly and the governor agreed on that year. We didn't even have a budget, but we did have codification of the 2 million by 2030 goal. In that law, it specified that MyFutureNC had to report on this goal every single year. You have the most recent report in the packets that are put at your desktop for today. Feel free to go through those later. We have a board of directors for our nonprofit. I'm thrilled to say that your Chair Davis also sits on my board of directors, as does Superintendent Truitt. We have an advisory board of directors as well, and the advisory board includes K-12 superintendents, charter school representation, homeschool representation, among all the other sectors. Now, what are we doing about it? We're a small but mighty team. We have a very powerful, influential board of directors, consist of all the education leaders in the state, key business leaders, philanthropy, and key policymakers. My Future as an organization seeks to fill gaps, and the three things that we do, we've got three strategic priorities that I'll share out with you. One is we measure progress towards the goal. So we're a data shop. We partner with UNC Carolina Demography. We get all of the data through National Student Clearinghouse and other quality sources and compile that in ways to be able to tell how we're tracking towards the goal. Additionally, we also accelerate action. I'll speak to that. And then the third thing we do is we advocate for policy, good policy that can help to increase attainment. So how are we doing as a state? When you take the census data, which is how we track, we are currently 24,000 behind where we need to be at this point in time in order to meet the state's goal. Looking at the trajectory, we're currently on track to fall short by 71,000 individuals that would hold a degree or credential by the year 2030. So we've made significant progress. We've actually increased over the course of the last few years by 4%. So we're making strides in the right direction, but we still have a lot of work to do. How are we doing county by county? We have 82 of 100 counties that have increased educational attainment when you factor in changing populations, changing levels of attainment. We've got 82 of 100 that have increased attainment, 18 have not, and those are all in our rural parts of the state. So as an organization, we track data for all 100 counties because we want opportunity for every single person in every single county across North Carolina. Now, how do we get there? We strive to accelerate action through a number of different ways, but one of the main things that we do is we try to encourage at the local level for them to adopt a local educational attainment goal. And in partnership with Carolina Demography, there is a recommended local goal, and you've got in your data packets, you've got your counties that you actually live in. You've also got the state goal. And we've got recommended goals for every one of our 100 counties. And if you aggregate those up, that equals 2 million by 2030. Okay, so our goal is to get every county to adopt their local recommended goal, put a plan in place, and execute against that plan so that everybody is increasing overall educational attainment. We have a team of about 18 people, and half of our resources are distributed across the state. We have one person in every one of our economic prosperity zones. So if you don't know your person that aligns with your region, we encourage you to get to know them and leverage them. They could serve as a resource for you. The other thing we do, as I mentioned, in your packet, you have a county profile. We also have these profiles broken out in a number of ways. We have them broken out by charter region. So if you have 5 or more charter high schools in your region, then those charter profiles are also in your packet. We've got regional profiles, so you can see how is your region performing. We've got them broken out by Workforce Development Board. We have them a number of different ways because we want to tell the story in a way that individuals that align with whatever that message might be. However you track, regional, county level, whatever, we have district profiles, et cetera. Those are in the packet. Now, I'm going to tell the story about the K-12 key performance indicators and how those play into the goal. The story is not the best story to tell, but I heard earlier one of the presenters, what do you need to hear versus what do you want to hear? So I'm going to share the data, but I also want to tell you behind this, I know there's a lot of good work going on out in the field. We could not be where we are but for the work that goes on every single day by our K-12 system. Now, when we look at the key performance indicators that we track, we have a number of those that are specific to K-12. We care about the things that John Paul was just talking about as much as we do anything, because if you can't read, you certainly are not going to achieve higher levels of education either. Now, when we look at it, all of these are in the book that you have, so I won't go in these one by one. I'm going to focus on the ones that are more specific to the high school population. Now, if you take 100 ninth grade students today and you track those through the pipeline, out of 100, only 30 are going to graduate on time, go on enrolling in post-secondary, and come out with a 2-year or a 4-year degree or a certification within 6 years after high school graduation. That's 30 out of 100. So where are they falling out of the pipeline? When you look at this, I want to stop right here. When you look at it, I'm going to start first with high school dropouts. Number one, y'all know about chronic absenteeism. You focus on that heavily. At the same time, if they don't show up, they can't learn, but if they drop out, they certainly can't graduate. So that feeds into the pipeline. I have this put into numbers as compared to percentages because I believe the way we get to 2 million by 2030 is one by one by one, and every single child counts. So when you look at this, we have 9,600 kids that are dropping out of high school every year. Now, what's even more staggering is that the persons of color who have different, when you look at the percentages of persons of color who are dropping out, it is disproportionate to the percentage of the makeup of the population. And specifically, if you look at our Hispanic population, you see a third of the dropouts are the Hispanic population. So I would encourage us to think about how can we look at these disaggregated data and focus on particular populations to keep them in the pipeline. We are one of 9 states that allows students to drop out at age 16, one of 9. So I would encourage us to think about the supports that we can put in place to make sure they stay that they stay on track. When you look at the on-time graduation, I've got it broken out in 2 different ways. We've got 16,000 individuals that are not graduating within 4 years. But if you go even further and you do a 5-year, we still have 14,000 of the 16,000 that aren't graduating within the 5-year range. So we're looking at all these pieces of the puzzle, and there again, the disaggregated data will demonstrate that we've got disparities within different populations. Foster care homeless, those numbers are staggering when you think about that 53% of our foster kids are actually graduating on time. So as we go through this, we've got post-secondary enrollment. We've got 43,000 students that are not enrolling within a year after high school graduation. And then further, we've got, when we look at financial aid, that's the very first step to being able to afford education after high school. So we've been heavily focused on FAFSA completions. FAFSA's been a hard year. We know it's been a hard year, but we have to keep that drumbeat going. We've put in place 37 pilot districts, and I believe that I'm excited to say that Superintendent Phipps has been one of those, and he's listed up here as seeing some significant progress there. So we've been partnering with 37 pilot districts. We also have a financial aid summit that's coming up this summer. 350 counselors and advisors will gather to look at best practices. So we are doing the outreach. We've got a great attendance that's planned for June. Labor market alignment. We don't want to graduate with a degree or credential and it not lead to a high demand or high growth jobs that pays a family sustaining wage. So we also focus on labor market alignment. One of the things that's been super important is our credentials of value work. DPI has been a great partner in this. When you look at all the work that y'all put into it, we've got DPI, community colleges, workforce development boards, and commerce all coming together to make sure that we're aligning with the 2 million by 2030 goal. What credentials count toward the goal? High demand, high growth jobs that pay a family sustaining wage. And so when DPI looks at the data, y'all have done a great job of increasing the number of students who are earning credentials. And you've also worked towards alignment of those. About 20% of the 325,000 actually count towards the goal. So we're going to want to continue to make sure that we're aligning across the state among all the sectors that I referenced. We are policy and advocacy. We are a policy individuals. I'm a lobbyist. I have a lobbyist on staff. We came alongside the Department of Public Instruction, State Board of Education last year to encourage the General Assembly, and they adopted a career plan in place for every middle and high school student to make sure that they are on track. We have a policy agenda this session mainly focused on higher ed, making sure that students have access to funding that can get a non-degree credential in our higher ed institutions, as well as local funding. And then finally, completion and persistence funding for those that are in post-secondary but are at risk of dropping out. So the last thing I'll close with is, as part of your strategic plan, this is one of the things that you guys have been laser focused on. You want to eliminate the opportunity gaps. So I'm going to end with a call to action here with 3 things. One is what I mentioned is we are working to try to encourage at the local level all sectors to adopt their local goal, put a plan in place, and strive to achieve that plan. I'm excited to say that Caldwell is actually the first in the state where every single sector has adopted their local goal. They're in the process of putting a plan in place, executing on that plan to, in fact, increase educational attainment. So we would encourage that across the entire state. Second thing here, wherever you can, you've got CTE bonuses, for example. Can you leverage those to incentivize teachers to teach CTE courses that are going to lead to a credential that leads to a high demand, high growth job that pays a family sustaining wage? What is already out there that you all have the ability to leverage? And then the third thing here is where you see our key performance indicators. If you all are in a position to put goals in place, track against those goals. One of the things that we don't have, for example, is a goal for dual enrollment. How many of the students are actually dually enrolling in courses or AP courses or Cambridge or IB, and then tracking towards that for every single district and then for every single demographic. So with that, I'll close, and if we have time, happy to open it up for any questions or turn it back over.
Cecilia, anybody have a question for Dr. Robinson? 2 great partnerships we've just heard from. So thank you so much.
Thank you
for this work too.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm just going to take a minute to make a comment, because Cecilia and I talk about Latino populations a lot. We have a very large Latino population in Greene County, and could not let this moment pass to say that there are groups that are making real headway. When I first started in Greene County 11 years ago, $10 an hour was the magic number that could get a 16-year-old Hispanic male to quit high school to go work construction or some low-end manufacturing. But I would be remiss if I didn't take this opportunity to toss up Diana Urrutia here at NC State University with the Juntos program that has just done some incredible things with getting families involved to understand the power of education, what it means to stay in, and then what it means to go into some type of a degree program post-secondary. They do an amazing job. In just a few years, we have grown in Greene County to the second largest Juntos program in this state, coming for you to Catawba County. But we celebrated last night all of our graduates from the Juntos program, and it was great to see families there that if the parents had a second grade education or a sixth grade education in their home countries and are celebrating their own children, not just graduating high school, but going to college. They don't always understand everything we say, but they know that we care about their kids and we have a program that's there designed to get them. So if you have a sizable population and your numbers look like what she's reflecting up here, look into that because it does work.
Thank you, and thank you for the work y'all are doing. Significant work in that area of the state on that particular population. Thank you.
Thank you. I will now quickly go through the committee reports. We have 2 action items today. SLA 1 is the healthful living standards. We reviewed these standards last month and discussed them again yesterday. Today, we vote to approve draft 3. And I would like to take a moment to thank all the teachers who volunteered to serve on the data review committee, the standards writing team for their many months of thoughtful engagement, and to the team at DPI who worked with them. We would also like to thank all of those who responded to the multiple surveys that were a part of this process. SLA 2 is a state board policy amendment, state graduation requirements, which is grad 004, advanced courses satisfying graduation requirements, which is grad 008, and course for credit, which is CCRE 001. These amendments to 3 different policies are all necessitated by the new computer science core requirements. We have quite a few discussion items. The first 2 are SLA 3, a new state board policy on academically or intellectually gifted program guidelines, and an amendment to local academically or intellectually gifted program guidelines, which is ACIG 000. The new policy provides a uniform definition of academically or intellectually gifted student, as was required by House Bill 259. In our discussion yesterday, we also had an overview of AIG programs in North Carolina, and we reviewed revisions to the AIG program standards, which are used by districts to guide the development of their AIG plan, which is required every 3 years, and that process is has begun now. And finally, we heard about quite a few districts and charter schools who have very promising AIG programs. SLA 5 is a state board policy amendment, high school diploma endorsements. This policy is being amended to meet legislative requirements by adding 2 additional endorsements, arts proficiency and North Carolina citizenship. SLA 6 is another policy amendment, We to Achieve Alternative Assessment and Twice Retained Definition, KNEC-003. This is the final step in the transition from the initial twice retained policy, which only included students in the 3rd grade. As funds became available, we have added 1st and 2nd grade, and this amendment now adds kindergarten as the final grade level. SLA 7 is the 24-25 Comprehensive Plan for Reading Achievement Implementation Guide. We update this document annually, and it is based on stakeholder feedback, data, and the development of ongoing resources. No major changes there, just those small updates. SLA 8, the 23-24 Education Preparation Program Science of Reading Update. We heard from leaders from Lenore-Ryan University, UNC Charlotte, and Appalachian State who reviewed their efforts and their progress in aligning their teacher training and development programs with the science of reading that our K-5 teachers and others have been undergoing over these last few years. We know how important their work is to sustain the gains that we're already seeing in reading proficiency across the state. SLA 9 is an update on the Gazella-Abramson Holocaust Education Act. The state board is required by law to work with the North Carolina Council on the Holocaust and NCAT to review the standard course of study and integrate education on the Holocaust and genocide into English, social studies, and other courses as appropriate. There is also a requirement that we develop a curriculum for a Holocaust studies elective. This work has been going on over the past 2 years and with implementation for this coming 24-25 school year. We heard from Michael Abramson, who is the son of Gazella Abramson, and who chairs the Council on the Holocaust. He shared their mission, which is to support public schools in providing education about the Holocaust. And he talked about the rich offerings of teacher training that his organization supplied in support of that mission. And he spoke very movingly about the work that his mother did that led to the organization of the Council on this work. So we are very grateful for their involvement with this. And certainly we heard that it is going to have an impact in our students' understanding of this event and how it fits into our wider history. SLA 10 is proposed K-12 world language standards. We received an overview of the languages taught in North Carolina, as well as the structure of the standards, and then took a look at some sample standards. We will vote, this is a discussion item, so we will vote next month on these standards, as we will do for the K-12 art standards. Again, this was draft 3 for our discussion, and we reviewed the 4 strands which apply to dance, music, theater arts, and visual arts, and also reviewed sample standards in each. So both of them will come to us in July for approval. With 3 consent items, SLA 12 is North Carolina's Governor's School Board of Governor members. We are voting today to approve Lyndon Cummings, Deborah Goldberg, and Tracy Waters for 2nd terms, and Russell Knight, Arisha Smalls, Lois Peterson, and Amy Williams who are being recommended to fill expiring terms. SLA 13 is a policy amendment to the Automotive Service Programs, SCOS-014. This policy is being amended to reflect a new accreditation process and a new global governing body for these courses. Finally, SLA 14 is a policy amendment to the North Carolina Career and Technical Education course inventory. These updates reflect the technical nature and the rate of change within certain industries, and advanced manufacturing is being moved from a state to a local course to provide flexibility for local districts that need to offer specialized courses relating to local and regional business needs. And that concludes the report from Eugene.
Thank you, Ms. Canvas. The SLA committee is bringing us SLA 1 and 2, along with 12, 13, and 14 for consideration today. Any questions for Ms. Canvas?
Chair Davis, I want to make it known that I'm going to be voting against the helpful living standards. I do not want to diminish the hard work that has been done by the committees. And Dr. Day, I realized that it was yeoman work, lots of meetings, lots of discussion. I just feel as though the existing legislation that is there that speaks very clearly around abstinence and other areas that are very important to this area of the curriculum just have not been revised or included, I should say, to the extent that I think they should have been. So I will be voting against those standards. Thank you.
It will move SLA 1 to separate vote then during our action agenda. And we'll now turn to the education.
Olivia.
Yes, sorry. Educator Standards and Practice Committee led by Dr. Oxendine.
Thank you very much. I am Olivia Oxendine. I chair this committee along with Dr. Donna Tipton-Rogers. We have one action item that's going to be voted on shortly, and this pertains to vendor cut score changes with respect to the praxis for social studies and also the praxis for family and consumer sciences, as well as technology education. And the new tests come into effect September 1, 2024, and the current ones expire next August 31, 2025. The next item, ES&P 2, is pursuant to Session Law 2023-125, Part 2, Section 2, calls for the State Board of Education to approve an exam or an assessment, I should say, for candidates seeking a license. In the last year, this State Board of Education voted on a portfolio assessment, and we have made a lot of strides in terms of developing the framework for that portfolio. Was presented to us yesterday by Doctors Derek Jordan, Dr. Tomberlin, Tabari Wallace, Andrew Seiberg was part of that team. Kevin Evans, certainly in the background, making things come together. Also, Dr. Jordan introduced by way of a PowerPoint frame the members who served on the task force. We had a group of higher education faculty, program coordinators, program directors. We also had superintendents, and we also had assistant principals. And we also had two of our advisors, Patrick and Donna, contributing to that hard work. So appreciative of all that you do for everything, all things State Board of Education and DPI. The remaining components, a lot of work ahead. I mean, we've made a lot of strides in terms of, next month, we will approve that portfolio assessment model, but lots of work ahead. Portfolio training, setting a cut score for that portfolio assessment, and then taking the work or using the work from the California assessment and making it more appropriate or making it appropriate for North Carolina. So when I say work yet to be done around the portfolio, I'm talking about those three task areas, making sure to the fullest extent possible, the 7 standards are very much present, whether they be in the portfolio task or working what isn't as obvious in the portfolio into something for perhaps coursework or the internship. Good work, a lot of good progress. The next item is ES&P 3. Well, we have just a series of recommendations, let me just frame it that way, brought to us by members of Pepsi, Dr. Ann Bullock, Dr. Bill Griffin, Dr. Hank Weddington, Dr. Alexandria Hoskins, and Dr. Randy Penfield presented a series of recommendations. The first one under ES&P 3 pertains to the Pedagogy and Residence License Program, pre-service training and field experience for residency teachers, and pre-service training for the temporarily licensed teachers. And just a list of requirements that EPPs must make sure are provided by way of coursework or other types of activities. And that item will be coming to us next month, as well as the other recommendations brought to us by Pepsi. ES&P 4, this is a recommendation on that pertains to the way in which the minimum GPA must be calculated in order to determine entry into teacher education at the preparation level. And so the components of that GPA will largely be relevant coursework, and also all official transcripts will be part of the factors that make up the minimum GPA for entry into teacher education. ES&P 5 pertains to a request from Pepsi for the State Board of Education to add to our legislative agenda the removal of the Praxis Core. The Praxis Core is also a pre-assessment to determine the minimum skills and competencies and knowledge to get into the teacher education program. And so Pepsi has come before us asking that we add to our legislative agenda the removal of that assessment. And we had a very healthy debate, not necessarily debate, but a discussion around the removal, or the request to remove, I should say. We talked about a whole series of things. For instance, what does it mean to, what does it mean in terms of we have certain pathways that do not have to take the Praxis Core? The only pathway that must take the Praxis Score has to do with, is pertinent to the candidate without the 4-year degree, the traditional pathway without the degree, seeking or wanting to move into teacher preparation. We also discussed, I think the question came up with regard to no other area at the 4-year level requires an exam to go further or to go into a program. The more I thought about that question, it's a very valid point that was raised, but I would also say to that, I'm not aware of any other area at the four-year level that has the impact that teacher education has. So this isn't just any four-year program. This is a four-year program about those individuals who wish to be teachers, and their professional training begins at the junior level. So it's within that four-year period of time. And there were other comments. I mean, it's an important topic. It deserves discussion. It deserves thought, because it certainly could have unseen consequences, implications. So that item is going to be, those items that were brought to us as recommendations from Pepsi will be taken up and voted on next month. So that concludes my report.
Thank you, Dr. Oxendine. ES&P is bringing us one item for action today. Any questions? Seeing none, we'll move to the Healthy Responsible Students Committee led by Mr. Reginald Keenan. Mr. Keenan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm Reginald Keenan, along with Ms. Wendell Hall, heading the RS committee. Mr. Chair, we have two action items and two discussion items. And yesterday, the first item we talked about was HRS 1, the SBE policy amendment, NC middle school athletic manual updates by Dr. Essett. Well done. And those changes are necessary to reflect the recent policy and rule changes in alignment with the best practice for safety for student athletics. And that was, again, presented by Dr. Essett. And rather than go through the changes, we have review those changes. And again, they're very necessary to amend HTL 001. And our HRA 2 for action, we had policy amendment for athletics for the ATHL 001-006. And the new SB policies for HTL 008 through 0110. Of course, Ms. Ryan Collins have talked about these changes in the past. And of course, it's so they can comply with the rules that were adopted on March 7, 2024, that the rules relating to interscholastic athletics. And again, Ryan, appreciate the work you have done for those particular items. And then for the discussion item, again, Dr. Essett came back before us to talk about the youth risk behavior survey. And as always, we appreciate that information because, again, the student voice is the road to change, as said by Dr. Essett. As we know, there are samples done throughout middle school and high schools to hear from the children and listen to their voice. And again, Dr. Essett has said there's a long way to go, a lot to do, but still there's some positive trends. And I like to briefly mention some positive trends because it's always good to know that there is some change, even though long way to go. It's always good to hear that something is moving in the right direction. She mentioned vaping, marijuana use, alcohol use, overweight, students ate breakfast, physical activities, student feel more cared for, student behavior, suicidal behaviors are better, except for the CLB students. Still, they are having a difficult time. Their numbers are so much drastically worse than other students. And again, those are some positive notes that we was mentioned. And also had Mr. Travis, I think from Washington Elementary School from Guilford County. He talked about the wellness program, how that has made a difference in students' performance and a lot of other positive things for physical activity, how it makes a difference in children's lives. As stated by Dr. Essett, when you exercise, it seems to be more of a better, able to be a better student, academic performance, and that really a good relationship that makes a lot of sense. The better you feel, the better you can have them pay attention and do good things for yourself. And then lastly, we had HRS 4 for discussion. That was SBA policy amendment for the Healthy Active Children policy, HLT 000. And that was just minor amendments made to that and nothing major for that particular policy. And with that, Mr. Chair, that concludes our report.
Thank you. So the HRS is bringing us two items for consideration today. Any questions? Seeing none, we'll move to the Education, Innovation, and Charter Schools Committee led by Mr. John Blackburn. Mr. Blackburn.
Thank you, Chair Davis. I'm joined in this work of this committee by Ms. Jill Camness, the Vice Chair. We had one new business item. Charter School Review Board met last month, and they voted not to renew the charter for Children's Village Academy. We have four action on first read. The first one is EICS 1, I move to approve item EICS 1, the proposed revisions to the charter school agreement form conditioned on the amendment of the second sentence of paragraph 7.2 of the proposed charter agreement form to read, further, a charter school may not limit admission on the basis of sex, except that a charter school whose approved mission is to provide single-sex education may limit admission on the basis of sex consistent with the federal and state law. That will come to you. You heard the rest of that agreement yesterday, so unless there are any questions, we will actually ask you to vote on that with that one amendment. EICS 2, on Monday, June the 3rd, I chaired a hearing panel of the EICS committee. The panel included state board members Wendell Hall, Jill Camnitz, and myself. We convened to hear an appeal from the May 6, 2024 decision of the Charter School Review Board not to renew the charter of Children's Village Academy in Lenore County. I gave a lengthy presentation yesterday. The panel concurred with the decision of the CSRB on the non-renewal of Children's Village Academy. EICS 3, Ms. Julie Garber presented us a request from Elizabeth City Pasquotank Schools to remove the restart authorization for Pasquotank Elementary. EICS 4, Ms. Melissa Davis presented us for us to approve Brunswick County Virtual School, which we thoroughly vetted, and we think it's a very valid thing that we go ahead and move on that. We had 2 action items from last month. We talked about EICS 5, Craven County request to remove restart authorization for Havelock Middle School. EICS 6, Ashley Vaquero gave us the charter school review report last month, so we'll ask for that to be approved. And we had one discussion item, Dr. Jordan and some of his fellow, or some of his folks helped us with understand our alternative learning programs and the vast changes that are being made in the state for that. So that, with that, Mr. Chair, that concludes my report.
So EICS is bringing us items 1 through 6. Any questions? Seeing none, we'll move to the Business Operations Committee led by Vice Chair Alan Duncan. Vice Chair Duncan.
Mr. Chair, we do have Government Affairs Committee today as well.
Okay. Mr. Hall.
You left me hanging there, Mr.
Sorry.
Which way we were going to go? But anyway, thank you.
I got somebody watching my back.
Well, thank you, sir. We will be short, extremely short. The Government Affairs Committee did meet. As you well know, the General Assembly is in session there. No bills have been acted upon that have a direct impact on the priorities of the State Board and DPI. But we do have Ms. Lily Rhodes, who is here. Lily is the new director for the Government Affairs Committee, and she's coming forth now to give us an update on some bills that's being tracked and information concerning any future bills that we might want to consider. At this time, I present to you Ms. Lily Rhodes, who will introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lily Rhodes. I just started here 2 months ago. Before that, I came from community colleges as their legislative liaison. For that, I was at the Administrative Office of the Courts as a judicial fellow, and I graduated from Campbell Law in 2022 and East Carolina Honors College in 2019. Very happy to be here. Education is a huge part of my family. I was the 4th generation to work for community colleges, so that's big. And then my dad was a principal, teacher, administrator, and is currently serving his last couple of months on the Pitt County Board of Education. So big public education family. Next one again. So just a review of our budget items for our agenda. So we have the math reform, ensuring every student is proficient by math 1 by 9th grade. And that is including early screeners, 60 minutes of daily math instruction. And we're asking for 36 million recurring and 8 million non-recurring. Then we have the early literacy, expanding that Excellent in Public Schools Act of 2021 to include grades 6 through 8. And that's 13.26 million recurring and 20.7 million non-recurring. And then finally, it is Thrive, building on our CARES pilot to continue targeted support to improve low-performing schools at 4.5 million non-recurring. So a couple of just a couple of bills to update everyone on. We are still working on the budget, not sure when that will happen, but we are hopeful that we'll have a budget sometime soon within the next couple of weeks, and I will make sure to keep everyone updated on that. So first, our first session law of the year was the 2023 budget technical corrections. We just had a few things in there. The big one was those career development plans, changing it to within 90 days of being enrolled in a public school. You have to complete this plan. We noticed that this was affecting about 5 to 10% of students, but enough where we needed to change the law. And then also changing it to having complete the plan by 8th grade instead of 7th grade. And then a couple of other bills just to note. This first one, H207, actually just came up yesterday in Senate Ed. There's a proposed community substitute, but according to Senate rules, they have to wait a week to vote on it. So they'll come back and vote on it next week, but it makes some various changes to short-term suspensions, which right to appeal, some eyewitness testimony, and then expungement if certain criteria are met. So we will see if that gets voted on next week. The next one was approved by the House yesterday, so head over to the Senate. This has to deal with, this is just a Wake County issue, but the Wake County Young Men and Women's Leadership Academies currently partner with St. Augustine's to get their college credit. We are aware of what has happened with St. Augustine recently, so this bill just allows them to change to their college partner. A couple of other ones just to note, and I picked these of just kind of having the most momentum. Alternative licensure path, CD high school. This is a study to look at the licensure requirements for career and technical education. And there's the academic transparency bill, just providing public access to lesson plans and other instructional materials. Then the Support Students with Disabilities Act. It has a grant program. And then the diabetes education for parents, providing type 1 and type 2 diabetes education in schools. And then finally is the school performance grade pilot. I know DPI worked hard on. The House Ed Reform Committee did recommend it. And so those members of that committee filed a bill on that one. So that is all I had. And I can stand for any questions.
Hearing, we do have one. Mr. Vice Chair, Doc.
I had thought the board had requested with the CARES funding to continue, that be recurring, not non-recurring.
I have that in my information as non-recurring. I'm not sure if that is a change from before I got here, but all of mine says non-recurring. I'm not sure if anyone else has any information on that one.
Well, why don't we ask Rupi to go back and to check on that, but not.
I'll look into it.
Intent of the board, the discussion was non-recurring.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Appreciate that. It's Camus, Vice Chair.
Any light you can shed on the status of the instructional materials act? Where does that sit and what's your sense of it?
The one that I just, with the academic standards one, I could see it being kind of watered down is what I've been told. It won't be everything. I think they just want to make sure the textbooks, which we know textbooks aren't used that much anymore, but any kind of basic instructional materials are at least told to parents at the beginning of the year. That was just recently filed, so I haven't seen any movement on it, but I can find out some more.
That one just had the potential for just a tremendous mess.
Yes, we're aware. Yes.
Any other questions or concerns? Hearing none, we want to welcome you, Ms. Rose,
Yeah.
here with us, and we look forward to working through you and with you concerning the General Assembly and its actions. Do you have any idea, anyone said anything quickly as I was thinking of a possible end date for the General Assembly?
I tell everyone that I would never even bet a penny on a possible end date. I have heard budget possibly in mid-July, but that seems unlikely over the past couple of weeks. I would never gamble on that, but hopefully it will be in a short session.
All right. Thank you so much. Mr. Chairman, that ends Government Affairs Committee report.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Now to turn to the Business Operations Committee led by Vice Chair Duncan. Vice Chair Duncan.
Thank you, Chair Davis. We have a number of items, action items on our schedule today, and along with John Blackburn, we lead this Business Operations Committee. Our first BizOp 1 is 6 contracts. First one was on an Amendment 9 for teaching strategies. This has to do with the early childhood assessment. Dan Tetrell presented this contract. It is consistent with the approach that has been taken in previous years. Second contract is for Beta Box. Dr. Christy Day presented on this. This is a math, science, and STEM program authorized by the legislature in the amount of $4 million. Dr. Day set out the process and also provided information about the Beta Box program and indicated that it's been one that has been well received by several districts and that's found to be helpful in the STEM area. Our third contract under BizOp 1 is a task order for Educator selection and evaluation. It's a mixed methods measurement study of North Carolina's advanced teacher roles program. This is a $1.3 million contract. It's been previously approved by the legislature. Dr. Tomberlin set out what our process will be for moving forward on this contract. Our fourth contract is summer food service for health inspections. So as everyone knows, it's very important to have continuing summer food service for many of our students, and that's something this board's been extremely dedicated to. One of the things that comes with that is you also have to have appropriate inspections over the summer. We're not otherwise budgeted for, but are required by the Department of Agriculture, as they should be. And so this is for an amendment for an additional $200,000 in order for those inspections to be carried out by independent inspectors, which is what's required. The fifth contract is the Copyright Clearance Center license that was presented by Dr. Tammy Howard, our Senior Director of Accountability and Testing. And that's a contract that is very interesting, I think, to the board, but in essence allows us to use materials that are copyrighted otherwise for testing. It just needs to be done in a copyright cleared way. This is the most efficient way to do that. Our sixth contract was for replacement wreckers with automatic transmission. So we had quotes for that, and we have 3 districts that are in need, and we have those each be $310,000. Very expensive equipment, but try to use very effectively and efficiently when we have the opportunity to be able to get these replacements. And that includes BizOp 1. That leads us into BizOp 2. Well, I should stop. For any questions, please stop. No need, please. BizOp 2 is the 2024-2025 Digital Learning Initiative grants. Lindsay Sipe was presented to us before, presented on these grants and explained the awards and the different categories for the awards, and some presentation about how the awardees were selected, including the notion that they're very focused on high quality, innovative programs, but also acknowledge that there are ways that they're going to continue to try to make sure all counties around the state are better involved in this process. Got to report not just on awards, but how it was done. BizOp 3 was the 400-page presentation by Jennifer Bennett from the Division of Financial and Business Services. This had to do with North Carolina Public Schools allotment manual and the updating that goes with that. That was a warm-up for BizOp 4, which was her 600-page condensed report, which is on the approval of the Financial and Business Services manuals. And this is in anticipation, if you will, of the allotments that we will receive and the changes in the law. The board has approving this pre-approval so that the payments can be made quickly once it's passed, depending on what our meetings might be. But at the same time, it's anticipated. So there will be some things ultimately that are different when the budget is finally passed, when the legislature is finished. It will be brought back to us so that we're made aware of those things that have changed from this and any additional things that weren't contemplated at all. Now, so it'll come back to us for those. But this is a way to try to help them stay ahead of the curve and make sure people are paid on time and districts receive the allotments appropriately. Design 5 is the Homeless and Foster Transportation Grant. This was the $3 million grant that's made available by the General Assembly under Alex Charles, the Office of Federal Programs. Reported on this, I think we were all felt like our eyes were open in many respects when we saw a district that had 25% homeless and foster care children as their student population. And really a little bit of a theme of this meeting, because certainly as we talked about the alternative learning program in schools, an area where we have a lot of vulnerable students and a lot of work continues to need to be done, and we're appreciative of the work that started and will be ongoing. It came up there, and then it came up again in the MyFutureNC presentation this morning, talking about graduation rates. So this board has always been very important to us. This is a good reminder of how important it is and how much it matters. Unfortunately, only 20 districts will be able to get some funding from this grant, but that funding is good because it's helpful for these students and these districts, but it's also important for us to recognize how significant an issue this is for our young children. BizOp 6 is teacher compensation, advanced teaching roles request for proposal. This is a authorized proposal that's consistent with what's been done previous times. It's been, Dr. Tombo explained the process of setting this out and request for proposal that will go forward. And obviously hear more about the advanced teacher roles. The BizOp 7 is a consent item. We have a new finance officer for the Oakland City Schools, and we're always pleased to have new finance officers in place. On BizOp 8, this is the annual school start and end dates presentation. There has been some late breaking news that Alexa Schaus is going to give us a 30-second summary of it. Change just so that when the board votes, it's accurate what we're voting on. There has been small changes.
That is correct. We've received notice from Halifax County that they had a board meeting last week to modify their start dates. And so we would request that the board permit us to modify those dates to reflect the accurate start date that they that they have recently approved.
Now, looking to fellow board members, is there consensus that we can vote on this with that modification? The start date now been set by Halifax. Seeing no disagreement.
Seeing none, let the record reflect that change.
All right, then we had a review of updates on contracts. There were no questions this month. We also had a very short update on the budget report, which really focused on this is coming to the end of the budget year as well as preparing for the next budget year. It's an extremely busy time, and we're very thankful to the people that are working in our finance and business areas that are working with them. And that concludes our report, Chair.
Thank you, Vice Chair Duncan. So the BizOp team's bringing us 8 items for consideration today. Any questions on those items? Okay, seeing none, we have one additional action item to bring to your attention, and that is the proposed State Board of Education meeting dates for 2025. They've been included in your meeting packet and are now presented for your consideration as part of our action agenda. Are there any questions concerning the proposed 2025 State Board of Education meeting dates? Vice Chair Duncan.
I'd like us to talk about, for next year, I think November 4th through 6th is fine for the planning and work session. But as we have 3-day planning work session into November, the issue becomes that overlaps with election day. And that, I wonder if we long-term don't think about having October as the time before we get into the busy season of November and December, but we certainly, as with a 3-day meeting, we then are on Tuesday, which the first week of November is an election day. Even next year, there are municipal elections in some communities, but certainly on the even number of years, there very significant elections. So that's just a comment for us to look forward.
Yeah, thank you, Vice Chair Duncan. In fact, one step ahead of me, I had planned to mention, we'll go ahead now, that for our 2024 November meeting, we will need to move that planning and work session. We'll consider that at our next meeting, and the proposal is to move our 2024 November work session to December. So that's not on the agenda for today, but will be at our next meeting. And as we go through next year, we can consider an appropriate time, if necessary, moving this November 2025 meeting date so as to not conflict with election days. Any other questions concerning the agenda on our meeting for today? Okay. Then we'll now vote on those items requiring action from your committee reports, including consent, action, and action on first read items. We've identified SLA 1 to vote separately. Are there any other requests to remove any item from the consent, action, or action on first reading agendas for separate vote? Hearing none, I'll now seek a motion to approve the following. The biannual planning and work session minutes for April 30th, 2024 to May 1st, 2024. The SBE monthly meeting minutes of May 2nd, 2024. And the following items from your committee reports: SLA 2 and 12, 13, and 14. ES&P 1, HRS 1 and 2, EICS 1 through 6, BizOp 1 through 8, 2025 State Board of Education proposed meeting dates, and the 39 limited license and 7 initial professional license requests presented to us in closed session last evening. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Kamnitz. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Hall. Any discussion on these items? Mr. Fafaria, we call the roll to capture the vote.
Dr. Oxendine,
No.
Ms. Kamnitz,
Yes.
Mr. Keenan, Mr. Hall,
Yes.
Dr. Tipton Rogers, Mr. Blackburn,
Yes.
Ms. Moore,
Yes.
Treasurer Falwell, Lieutenant Governor Robinson, Vice Chair Duncan,
Yes.
Chair Davis.
Yes. Motion carries. We'll now proceed to the final item, which is
Chair-
FLA 1.
Chair Davis, I don't know the procedure on this, but I would like to retract my vote to yes for that first round of,
Okay. Let the record reflect Dr. Oxendine has changed her vote to yes for the previous motion. Now we'll move to consideration of SLA 1, and I'll ask for a motion to approve SLA 1.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Blackburn. Is there a second?
second.
Second by Ms. Kamnitz. Any discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Fafaria?
Dr. Oxendine,
No.
Ms. Kamnitz,
Yes.
Mr. Keenan, Mr. Hall, Dr. Tipton Rogers, Mr. Blackburn,
Yes.
Ms. Moore,
Yes.
Treasurer Falwell, Lieutenant Governor Robinson, Vice Chair Duncan,
Yes.
Chair Davis.
Yes. The motion carries. That concludes our action agenda for today. As a reminder, our July meeting is a one-day virtual meeting and will be held on July 11th. More information to come on that meeting. I'd like to express our appreciation to the Friday Institute. This has been a wonderful place to have a meeting, and we appreciate your partnership. Also want to thank the staff at DPI and all the others who participated in making this a successful meeting for the State Board. I now ask for a motion to adjourn. Motion by Mr. Keenan, second by Mr. Hall. Mr. Fafaria.
Dr. Oxendine,
Yes.
Ms. Kamnitz,
Yes.
Mr. Keenan?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Dr. Tipton Rogers? Mr. Blackburn?
Yes.
Ms. Moore?
Yes.
Treasurer Falwell?
Yes.
Lieutenant Governor Robinson? Vice Chair Duncan?
Yes.
Chair Davis?
Yes, motion carries. We're adjourned. Have a good day.